Kram in Japan. Kram in Japan.
Hey guys, welcome to Kram in Japan. Today is kind of a sad day. It is the 1-year anniversary of the great Tohoku earthquake. It is March 11th. So near my home there is some type of memorial set up. We're gonna take a look around and kind of pay our respects. So they've got these little paper bag lanterns set up all around here that say Gambaro Tohoku, Gambaro Miyagi, which means do your best, be strong Tohoku, do your best, be strong Miyagi. Quite inspirational. So I made my lantern. It says Gambaro Nihon, and on the back it says Be Strong Japan. So I'm gonna go get some dirt and a candle to put in this and set it up. So I got my dirt and my candle. And so did Jess. There's hers. Show me the other side. Fight, Japan! And there's mine ready to go. Let's find a place for it. Alright, there are lanterns. So since it's March 11th, I thought it would be a good idea to do something I've never made a video about, and that's my experience with the March 11th earthquake. I was in Japan when it happened, and it did kind of affect me, as it kind of affected everyone in the country. So basically, the day of the earthquake, I was making the final preparations to move into this house. We had spoken with the real estate company that we were going through in getting the rental set up and everything, and we went and made our first, basically made the deposit on the house. And the really strange thing about the day was that it was the first day that really felt like spring. The weather, it was the first time the weather had been excellent since the year prior. So we went out to eat, and we ate in the area around the branch of the school that I was working at that day. So after eating, I went to the school, prepared my lessons for the day, and my first class started at 2:45 in the afternoon. And as it is well documented, and many of you may very well know, that on March 11th at 2:46, the largest earthquake in Japanese history, a 9-magnitude earthquake off the coast of Miyagi Prefecture, struck Japan. And I felt it, to say the least. Basically, I was just sitting down with my students, and we had just started talking about their weeks and what they were doing, and if they had done anything special that week, and just kind of the basic small talk that kind of starts all of my discussion classes. And 1 minute into the class, the earthquake started, and it felt like, at first it felt like any earthquake, like I had felt several from living in Japan less than a year at that point. But earthquakes are very commonplace in Japan, even before this big earthquake. So it felt like any earthquake and didn't feel like a big deal. And I was like, oh, it's an earthquake. And it kind of kept going. And one of my students commented, like, this seems kind of like it's lasting a long time. But it didn't seem very serious. I'm like, yeah, it does. And then it suddenly ramped up and became the biggest earthquake that I had ever experienced, and the biggest that actually my students had ever experienced either. And just about everyone that I've talked to since then had said that it was the biggest earthquake that they felt. Although it was a 9 at the epicenter, for us here, I think it was only about a 6 magnitude. So after it ramped up, I suggested that we get under the table. So I got under the table with my two students at the time, who were two adult Japanese women. And we got under the table, and I was asking them, "Is this right? Is this where we should go? I'm really not sure. I don't have experience with this kind of thing." And all they expressed to me was, "We don't know. This is kind of the first time this has ever really happened like this." So I was like, okay, and looking out the window of the classroom. Now the classroom was basically all windows, like all floor-to-ceiling sliding glass windows, and I was on the second floor of the building that I was in. So looking out and down at the street, you look across the street and you see the little businesses and everything. Traffic is completely stopped because even in vehicles they were feeling this earthquake. People were coming out of the buildings and covering their heads and squatting down and trying to get really low to the ground and everything. And all the signs and everything were shaking, and it was very loud, and it was shaking everything so much that the clocks were coming off the walls, and the books were falling off the bookshelves. And in the lobby of the school, I heard the small TV that was in there come off the shelf that it was on and crash to the ground, and basically just made a huge mess of things. Was very violent and very loud and very very frightening. So it died down, and we all kind of went outside and tried to get in touch with people that we knew. Like I tried to get in touch with my wife, and people were trying to call and text their friends, and the cell phone networks were totally either down or just jam packed full of calls that nothing could get through. So I couldn't get in touch with anybody. And it went on that way for probably about an hour or so. And in that time, I helped clean up the school. And 30 minutes after the first main quake, we experienced the first aftershock. That was a 6 or 7 magnitude earthquake in and of itself. So the aftershocks were still coming, but I helped my manager clean up the school, and my students decided to obviously go home. But she couldn't call the rest of my students to, talk about whether or not we were going to cancel classes for the day or do anything like that. So I helped her clean up the school, and about an hour after an hour of not getting in touch with anybody, it just dawned on me that I could use the internet. So I got on the computer at the school and jumped on Facebook, and people were already talking about it. And thankfully, I saw that my wife had posted that there was a big earthquake, and that that she was all right and that everything was all right. But the way she phrased it, which is really hilarious in hindsight, is that I don't know if it'll make the news over there in the United States, but we just had a pretty big earthquake, so if you're worried about us, we're fine. And of course, at this point, being at work and whatnot, we really had no idea what was going on. We didn't know of the tsunami that was coming 15 minutes from the main earthquake. We really didn't know anything about Fukushima or anything, because we were still just trying to get in touch with people. So thankfully, that day was kind of Facebook to the rescue. We jumped on, and we were able to communicate. All of the teachers were able to communicate with each other. All of the managers of the schools were able to communicate with each other through the teachers' Facebook accounts, because Facebook isn't very popular in Japan, but all of the teachers have it. We use it to keep in touch with our family and friends back home. We use it to keep in touch with each other here in Japan. So it just kind of happened that way. And the managers were able to discuss whether or not they were going to keep the schools open. Of course, they closed the schools, and it was a very, very useful tool and kind of an interesting experience, kind of seeing social media and social networking work in that kind of way. It was really cool, actually. But you know, I can say that it was probably the most terrifying single experience of my life. But I'm still here. There were rumors that there was a great foreigner flight out of Japan, that a lot of the foreigners that were living in the country decided to hightail it out of here. Turns out that wasn't necessarily the case. I think less than 10% decided to leave, and I think a lot of those were probably military families who didn't maybe have a vested interest in being in Japan specifically, like a lot of teachers that work here, people that work in education and other fields, that kind of choose Japan, like I did. So, I'm as scary as it was. I'm still here, and through watching Japan kind of deal with this, and watching the way in which they dealt with it, and kind of the grace and dignity that they did all of this, it was really powerful, and made me really proud to live among these people. So, um, I would say that regardless of how scary the situation was, I'm glad I stayed. And I'll continue to stay because it's a great country, and if you've been watching my channel, then you know I love it here, obviously. But yeah, that's it. This was March 11th, the first anniversary of the Great Tohoku earthquake of March 11th, 2011. So that's it for Kram in Japan. Until next time, take care, guys.
Thank you for watching.